since I laid my eyes on you, my baby. I just want to make your dreams come true, my lady.
Welcome back, beautiful goddesses, to a Goddess Life podcast with myself, Erin, and your co-host, Anna. Today, we are diving into sacred rage and using it and facing it and exploring it. And I'm hearing triumphing through that dark energy without it being vengeful or spiteful, and utilizing it as a powerful supernova of light, apparently. So, Anna, I want to know what your take is on sacred rage. What does it mean to you?
Oh, it is scary. Just the word rage. For me, it's been a shame-based thing. I grew up in a home where if you were angry about something or you had sort of strong opinions, you should keep it to yourself and don't bother anybody else with it. So that is sort of the blueprint I got early on, which has not served me well growing up, like staying in situations, all kinds of situations, far too long, even though my entire system is, no, you need to get out. I'm so thankful. I'm more fine-tuned to now, so I can feel when the rage, sort of the anger starts to come, but also like sacred rage. I feel really connected to both Kali and Lilith. Kali with the safe, I want to say safeness. For me, it's safe to go into the landscape of anger. Because for me, anger is so much more than just being angry. It's this enormous fire inside you. It burns away what is there. And with Lilith, it is not so sort of explosive fire, but it's the this is not okay. The steps before the big fire. When I think of her and rage, I feel I need to sort of strengthen my spine
Mm.
and almost like blow out my chest. No, this is not okay. I can say I am by no means mastered rage because I still suppress it. I still hold in. And when I sort of let myself go there, it sort of consumes me. But I don't lash out words. I don't smash things. It's just I am so I'm so into it. I'm just seeing red. And since I've been suppressing it for so long, to separate rage and grief, rage and sadness, it has been hard. For me, those two are sort of entangled in. So I might feel sadness, but it's really rage. Yeah.
That is such a good point. And I feel like you really articulated that well in terms of the connection to Kali. And I know with the goddesses, everyone experiences the archetype of each goddess slightly differently because it's based on their personal journey, whether it's, Kali, whether it's Lilith, whether it's the sisterhood of the rose. That too is a goddess quality of the mother, maiden, and the crone and divinity. They all represent, regardless of the goddess that we align with, different archetypes. So it's appropriate that we are diving into Kali, who's considered to be a dark mother, I guess you could say. And in working with the Mahavijas and the Hindu teachings of those wisdom goddesses, just as there is Kali, the dark mother or the dark goddess, so too is there Leilani Tripura Sundara, who is the light, also considered to be the divine mother, but in the sun. So each of these represent archetypes. Now Lilith, Hecate, Kali, and that's just like the surface of the area of the archetype of dark goddesses. And I want to say archetype lightly because an archetype is a box that represents particular energies. But I feel that archetypal goddesses only scratch the surface. There's such deep nuance, and it goes so deep within all of us. We're not just one facet of the goddess, we are many faces of the goddess, whether it is in the sun, whether it is the muse, whether it is the dark mother, whichever one it is, they're all encompassing. And I feel like looking at the dark mother and sacred rage for me too can be scary, and it can feel all consuming. On another note, or in another paradigm or aspect of that, I allow the dark goddesses to consume me. And I'll tell you why. In the consuming and in allowing myself to go to that place, not projecting out at others, although when it's really intense, that's a possibility. And sometimes we find ourselves having to keep ourselves in check because emotions hold a frequency and they are contagious. And that's why we project them outside of us. And you can't project it out if it is not bubbling and swirling within us. Sacred rage for me is not about lashing out at others. Sacred rage is when something deeply sacred has been dishonored, disrespected, dismissed, and the boundaries have been crossed. And for me, that's what sacred rage means for me. And I say that because anytime I have been in the throes of sacred rage, it has been not just of my own experiences of not feeling like I can exert my will, being bullied, being dismissed or denied or outright just put to the side or discredited in a false way. I have sacred rage, not just for me, but for all the people, all the women and the men too, who experience those dynamics. I have sacred rage that the will of a human being is intentionally manipulated by external forces, sometimes unintentionally as well, right? That's sacred rage to me. It's interesting that it's going down this path because I wasn't expecting that on a, but that's what I would deem or term or label or categorize sacred rage for me personally. And it's different for everybody. It to put it just into like sweet, simple, clean, sacred rage is the diminishment or the desecration of any facet of the human being that is sacred. In that diminishing or desecration, rage erupts at the dishonoring and disrespect of something deeply sacred. And as human beings, we are deeply sacred, all of us. It's in your bones. There is a sacredness within our bones. There are centuries of knowing. You are ancient, dear ones. This is part of what sacred rage is for, is to stand up at times, to utilize it to say no more. And the dark goddesses and the dark mothers, or however you wish to label it, I love Callie. Like I did an entire 3-month in-depth course that encompassed all the channeling that came through of each of the Mahavijas, wisdom goddesses, and each of the different facets and the faces for feminine energy, because that's what it's for. But that required me to channel into each of the frequencies, really focus. So I had to go all in for each one individually and be completely embodied in whatever that goddess frequency wanted to share through the teachings of the course, the mantras, the mudras, their wisdom, and the aspect of moving from shadow to light. So when I look at it in that context, I will allow sacred rage to consume me, but being mindful that I'm not projecting it onto somebody that it is not warranted or is not connected to. And I also feel like Isis wants to talk about, I have huge wings I'm seeing in my mind's eye, the winged ones, the winged mother, the winged, I feel like the angelical realms are popping in here too. It's all wings I'm hearing, and as well as the avian starseed race, which is, I normally would say it's 6th dimension, but they're giving me 8, the infinite, the ability to walk on the grounds, but also to fly. It's that infinite, as above, so below, the heavens and the earth. the energy and the form. They're kind of mixing them together. These are all the winged ones that come in a circle of protection for those who are moving through experiences at this time of sacred rage against a facet of humanity, sacred rage coming up against things that desecrate something that is deeply sacred, whether it is the womb, the feminine, the masculine. Like, it's not just about women, it's desecrating anything that is sacred, and we are all sacred. So sometimes for some people they feel like it's a constant battle, but this is like the final throws before we walk through the door. Like, they're showing me these huge golden archway doors, and I guess one person would say, oh, that's the gates of heaven. And heaven is a term which we can probably dive into in more depth and explore with higher dimensional frequencies and some of the stuff I've already channeled through about heaven. But they're making me feel like, notice their golden doors, their golden ray frequencies. They represent moving into a new era, aligning with a new expanded consciousness. For those experiencing sacred rage, sometimes that darkness is a call, even if it is not clear or why you are experiencing it. Sometimes it is a call that resurrects your power. Sacred rage can unlock some of the deepest parts of you that you have kept in check, that you have ignored, that you have put into the closet, that you don't even recognize are there. She says, yes, this is in one. Oh, Anna, I have your grandmother here.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. I love when she shows up. She always has something so beautifully touching, relevant, that brings great peace. Always. I notice that on it every time she shows up. And she says, I'm all in if you're all in. And I know you and me, Anna, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah.
I'm always all in with your grandma too. She's saying that when we unlock sacred rage, sometimes it comes as a surprise. You will also notice that it may appear that it is in this life that you're experiencing sacred rage. Maybe it is connected to something that you have experienced in this life. And maybe it feels like something much deeper, something unnameable, almost unknowable. And yet it is there in the unfathomable. She says, because of this, you must also realize that as individuated souls in your consciousness living out multiple lives. She says, sweetheart, that is not just a sacred rage from this life. This is centuries upon centuries of sacred rage at the decimation of humanity, of the ignorance and absolute diminishment of so many sacred facets of just being alive, of interacting with others. And while this may be perceived as part of the soul's lessons, we currently at this time for this great ascension and in this great shift in 2025 to prepare you for 2026, we are putting in the key of the locked sacred rage of all the things that have occurred. She says it's kind of like a pile up at times. She says, go back to your vision with Ariel. Notice that there was all those photos and she was so excited with glee. This is so that you can always be assured that you are always on the right path. You are always going the right way, even if it is not clear, even if you are not sure which way to go. There is great, profound power with the dark goddesses and the dark mother. This is why so many are afraid of them, not because they are attuned to as being quote unquote dark, but because of the power behind it. When you unleash the emotion, the sacred rage, it shifts the dynamics, the paradigms change. Notice if it is locked deep within you after lifetime, and you come to this point in time, Ariel, however you wish to pronounce it, she's now saying, in order to be free, to walk through the gates, to embody the heavenly frequencies in the physical form, you must release the sacred rage and you must release the active things in your consciousness that continue to pull you down to lower frequencies that are aligned with that, I want to say, desecration. These are very strong words. Desecration is a strong word. Sacred is a strong word. And I don't mean strong as in harsh. I mean strong as in ding, ding, ding. I'm going to leave that in there just as a God bell confirmation. These are strong adjectives. I don't even know that they're adjectives or whether they're nouns, but they're making me feel like we are using these words on purpose. We are on purpose in delivering the messages through you and Anna. We are on purpose with the wording that we use, not necessarily because it is poignant to you, but the word has deeper meaning and many subtle nuances for every listener that takes it in and receives it. Sacred rage is not about annihilating another or even crumbling systems. Sacred rage is recognizing what is sacred. That is the point, after all. We only have rage when what is sacred has been diminished or desecrated, denied or dismissed. At times, you as human beings, says Ariel, sometimes do this to yourselves. You desecrate yourselves in your mind. You allow others to continue to trod upon you. You give away your free will unknowingly. She's showing me the gates again, and she's making me feel like put the key in. She's making me feel like the key's already in the door for whoever is resonating with this concept of sacred rage. The key is already in the door, but it's free will for us to turn the key to unlock it. And in addition, to utilize it or catalyze it for the highest spiritual benefit. Like, think about darkness. If you're moving through darkness, you can bet your bottom dollar that that's because more light is going to be illuminated. And if you choose to illuminate more light, I can guarantee you, you're going to illuminate more shadow, because the two appear to be in opposition, but they marry beautifully and perfectly to embody and encounter and process both. Is like being whole in a nanosecond is what I want to say. It's like suddenly being present. Think about how present you are in rage. Notice that the rage, sacred rage that we have is about the past, but it shows up in the present because it hasn't fully been catalyzed, alchemized, and released. Once we deal with that in the present moment and we allow it to be consumed in the fires of Kali, that's why I love the Mahavijja Dumavadi. And I love that Dumavadi has Ava right smack dab in the center middle of it, her name and the spelling of it. Goddess Dumavadi represents those who have been on journeys that are so filled with sorrow, darkness, injustice, to the point where it's almost like a lot of victims find themselves probably attuning to Goddess Dumavadi, because she is that sacred space to hold them there, to be able to revive what is sacred, burn away all that has occurred, and arise with pearls of wisdom and the wings of ravens, the avian starseed race here, and the wings of ravens that allow you to fly. And I have the eagle as well. And I have a condor. That's interesting. I've never had a condor specifically been shown to me and given that word ever in any of my channelings in all the years that I've been living on this earth plane. So I feel like that's relevant and significant for somebody on here. The wings, we take flight from the cremation grounds of someone like Dumavadi. And I know for me, as soon as I started learning about her, just to kind of roll with all the goddesses here, the second I read the name, there was this deep knowing in my bones. I already knew this goddess, and I had been sitting with her for decades, but I didn't know anything about her. So as I began to explore, and then I would channel, and then I would explore some more, and then I would channel and do activations and things like that, it became so obvious that many of us know these dark energies. So to not unlock it and set it all free to be catalyzed, to consume us, to be burned away, seems kind of counterintuitive, because that means we continue to hold it. Ariel is saying the purpose of this evolution and the purpose of showing you the multiple lives and the multiple photographs representing one, because it was such an exquisite vision you had that erupted and arose from deep within you as one of the deepest truths at the very bottom of the bones in the cave of you. It represents the fact that because we are here and because we get to continue to come back to expand and to grow as much as we need to, as long as we need to, as we so choose, that perhaps you would be more willing to let it go. Perhaps you would be more willing to forgive. Perhaps you would be more willing to go back in the trajectory and recognize, to create anew, to walk through the gates, to embody the heavenly frequencies in the form, requires you to catalyze and utilize the sacred rage, unlocking its wisdom, unlocking its power, tempering it with compassion, unconditional love, grace, and divine direction. In this way, we need not fear our sacred rage. Rather, we need ask, why do I feel this sacred rage? What part of me has been desecrated, denied, dismissed, discredited, or that I have even put of my own making into a corner? The purpose of sacred rage is not to, again, annihilate. It is rather intended to burn away all that created the decimation or the desecration of the sacredness of you, so that you may arise free from the emotional bondage of it. Your consciousness, they have the Akashic record now showing me that once you go through this process, each of us, like every time we learn a lesson, we discharge the emotional content because we've found the lesson or the pearl, and the experience or the frequency or the dynamic or the lesson suddenly no longer holds a spark. I want to say it has no charge to it anymore because you've discharged the energy. And that includes the emotional context. Ariel says with your grandmother, for those of you who know you have been here for multiple incarnations, you remember your past lives, even if it is not always clear at times. She says, know that in this life, particularly Blu-rays, you have been experiencing some of the original experiences of your individuated soul and your consciousness, where it is still active in your consciousness. To deactivate a particular frequency or a pattern or something that has continued and been woven, says the weavers, through multiple lifetimes to bring you to this moment of the truest diamond that it is. It requires us to kind of compile, as your grandmother said, piling up all of them together, and we do it all at once and it gets dispersed. Sacred rage is almost always synonymous with multiple incarnations or multiple active conscious experiences, even though we're unconscious of it, coming up to the surface to be consumed, to be burned away, to be freed and let go so it can be catalyzed, dissolved, and dissipated so that the pearls and the diamonds may arise. Imagine if no one in humanity embraced sacred rage. When we kill each other, we hurt each other, we step on each other, we pretend others do not exist, we pretend as if one thing makes somebody worthy and something else makes somebody unworthy. All those scenarios are quite relevant to sacred rage. If we were to talk about any of those experiences, notice these are all heavy topics. Sacred rage serves a very divine purpose. The key to using it is knowing that it will arise when you are ready to catalyze it, not when you decide you just want to be angry. Sacred rage is different than anger. It may be attuned to other people and it may not. Maybe it's just a personal experience you just feel like you keep having, or a limit you keep hitting, or a glass ceiling that you can't quite seem to break through over and over again. Sometimes sacred rage over the experience is the catalyst that propels you into breaking through the glass ceiling. Sacred rage is powerful and it is sacred and holds great purpose. Wow. I felt like I've been preparing for that all day to bring all that through. That's so interesting. And they're showing me the wings now as a force. So your grandmother's showing me, Anna, it's your grandmother that's showing me this. She's showing me these huge metallic wings, but they're not actually metallic. She says they're like this pure white energy that's dripping with the gold and frequency. I've seen these before, but she says, notice, Erin, that the wings are getting more of the gold metallic frequency on it versus the white. This is not an indicator that the white is not there, rather that light or white reflects all colors, whereas black absorbs, right? There's those dynamics of color frequencies and also color psychology. You could tie into those if you really wanted to. She says the reason we are showing you these wings so that you understand that those going through a massive spiritual growth, evolution, and unfoldment, this is what surrounds them. When you are visualizing or experiencing that feeling of sacred rage and you are willing to use your free will to choose to unlock it, allow it to be offered to the consuming fires of the divine goddess or divinity or the angelical realms itself. The seraphim are being referenced as well. They're very divine angelic flames, and that's the only way I can articulate it at this time, because they're not really angels, I guess. It's very rare that the seraphim comes through, but when it does, I don't have words to always articulate it. Do you ever have those experiences where this profound energy is here and I feel it coursing through me, but I don't know, the words do not do it justice. I don't know how to share it in a way that it would be fully comprehensible, the experience of the seraphim, for a lack of a better way. I see you nodding your head. You've had that experience too. Like how do you sometimes articulate these things? And this is why I like rolling with divinity, because when I fall short with words, or when I fall short with the ability to explain it, oh my gosh, divinity shows up in spades. And if I can just surrender into the goddess, to the archangel realms, to Ariel, to your grandmother, of my own free will, I surrender so that they can share it. Because my goodness, sometimes the way that they share it and the frequency and the words and the energy with it, that's why I rely on it. That's the power of it. But they're making me feel like, for those of you going through sacred rage and are at that point of unlocking it, or even just unlocking it slightly, dealing with it layer, you can't do it wrong. But there's just like, we need you to know that the winged ones surround you and protect you in all realms and dimensions, particularly those who are going through this process. It is a huge, rapid spiritual evolution and growth, not as a purpose of enlightenment, in quotes they're saying, but for the purpose of release. Nothing can have forward movement in a clean, clear, concise, and a freedom or sovereign way if it is still bound and chained to things that are active in the conscious or unconscious, that are part of the pearl that you need to glean it from. So they're making me feel like this is a deeply nurturing and protective energy. I'm hearing this. Wow, it's very strong. The goddess invites all who wish to release, offer to the consuming fire to be cleansed and purified. It is an invitation to all who wish to choose it. Now I have the energy of Jesus showing up here. This is so wild. Okay, I'm going to go with it. And Jesus is an archetype for me personally. We can probably dive into a whole other conversation on that another day too. But now I don't want to take over the conversation, but I just feel like these people just keep showing up and I need to hear this. Do you need to hear this too?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Keep going, keep
Okay.
going.
Okay. Now I have the archetype of Jesus, or the energy, or what some would assimilate or associate that energy with. And that energy of Jesus is actually making me feel like it's the invitation to shed the I am in the consciousness that holds the rage, that takes away from the sacredness of the truth of you. So, okay, so just to go back to the energy of Jesus and the goddess who is saying it's the invitation for anyone who wishes to release it. And Jesus showed up. And before the energy or entity or consciousness of that that divine frequency, I heard I think it's a quote from the Bible, something about the yoke, like, give your burdens to me, my yoke is light. And it's about casting your burdens onto the Christ within. And what is the Christ within? And Jesus is saying it's the same with the goddess. It is not different. We are casting it onto the goddess within, the divine within, the sacred within, because love and the sacred fires consume and absorb all things, darkness, light, rage, all the multifaceted colors and the frequencies available. It is the power of within. We can continue to carry the burdens, but those who resonate with this particular channel, with this particular dynamics of a flowing of wisdom and frequencies, who are here for ascension, who align with the goddesses, align with the energy of the archangels, the angelical realms, Jesus, or many others. There is no one way. There are a multitude of ways. This is simply a sacred invitation that although they may appear to be different teachings, they are but the same woven thread with the same purpose, no matter which group you come to it from. Without releasing what was, what can be seems to just be a repeat. And what can be, we wish to expand and evolve. First, we must release. Sacred rage is not a bad thing. It has a very divine purpose. Sacred is in the context of the two words for a reason. It is rage against the desecration of what is sacred. And this is why the rage becomes sacred. Woo!
Wow, that was amazing.
That was amazing. Girl, we got your grandma here. We've got the energy and archetype of Jesus. We got the goddesses. We got archangels. And they're saying, notice that this conversation very quickly, shortly afterwards of the last episode, in recording it, do you see the unfoldment? Do you see how carried you are? Do you see the exalted form that you are embodying? It is not about being better than another. It is the exalted form of the absolute, unabashed, unconditional acceptance of every experience your individuated soul has had through consciousness. We think it is about this life, but we are on the precipice of an evolution of consciousness that has already begun and is about to be fully embodied by many. Make no mistake, all of the eras of consciousness leading up to this is indeed what is being purged, cleansed, offered into the consuming fire of the Seraphim, casted the burdens onto the Christ within, handed over to the goddesses and the archangel. I wanted to say the angelical realms because they're making me feel like archangels have very individual personifications, whereas the angelical realms hold not just the archangels. I'm seeing the seraphim countering over it, or overseeing, I want to say, is how they're showing me the imagery of this. And the seraphim are divine sacred flames, and it embodies both. Fascinating. They're saying, do you see the unfoldment? Do you see how safe you are? Do you see how contained you are? Do you see that you may dissolve and offer your fear and your doubt into the fires? Step into the unknown, dear hearts, I'm hearing. Allow the discomfort that you may experience when you are no longer carrying the burdens of so many incarnations. Light as a feather, Birds of a feather flock together. The avian race, which again, I want to say now they're highlighting the 7th dimension. So when I teach dimensions in the way that it was channeled through the whole mapping system of how realities are, or the I am presence of the reality we embody and live out, they separate the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th dimensions as very particular ones. And the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th hold a trinity, whereas the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension hold a different trinity. And the Seraphim is saying right here, right now, these are the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensions that we are kind of leaning into at this point in time. Once you hit the personal power of the 5th dimension, once you balance your masculine and feminine energies within the Arcturian and the Palladian energy of the 6th dimension, which is that balancing in the union of the two, this is when we begin to expand and flourish, and our energy moves greatly outward in a higher consciousness when we hit the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension. These are the dimensions of domains. So there's the kingdom, there's the wisdom, and then the Seraphim says, we become the top. It is a flame. It is not a gender. It is not an embodiment. It is not an entity in the way most humans would logify in order to try and comprehend or understand. It is an energy. It is a frequency to which all things go back into the sacred flame, and which all things walk out of the sacred flame. Anna, I'm seeing a big bullseye in the room, and they're saying, this is where the goddess stepped from. The Dark Mother is the sacred rage, the flames of the goddess.
This was amazing.
So Anna and I are kind of nodding our heads in agreement here that we feel like, I don't think we could add anything else to this. I don't feel like there is anything else we could add to this. And I feel like we should close this episode here. And it's fascinating. I love to hear everybody's take on the information that's come through. Sometimes it needs to be integrated in bits and pieces. So to our beautiful listeners and viewers, please feel free to re-listen and re-watch as you feel intuitively called to, just to keep integrating the information, because we are just going to continue to roll with these energies. And let us know if you love hearing from Jesus, the goddesses, the seraphim, all of these different beautiful higher dimensional frequencies that really are here to help expand us, to help support us as we rise and evolve individually and, of course, collectively. Beautiful souls, goddesses, and any masculines, gods that are listening, thank you for being here. Anna and I have sacred reverence for you, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode.
Since I lay my eyes on you, my baby, I just want to make your dreams come true, my lady. If you low, I'll lift you up. Just let me know when it gets tough. Do you feel the way I